What's up, friends? Julie here. I believe that you can learn how to paint without breaking the bank. I just use simple supplies from the dollar store to create beautiful paintings so that you can follow along without having to spend a bunch of money on crazy expensive art supplies. So hang out. Today we are going to paint a beautiful beach sunset. Really simple, really quick. Just getting easy and straight to the point. We're going to learn some beautiful blending and just how you can let loose and have a little bit of fun getting to know your paint supplies. So hang out. I'm going to tell you what you need to follow along for this tutorial. Perfect. So today we have 6 colors. I'll start with the basics. So for most of my paintings, I always have black and white on hand. You know, it's nice to always have a couple of those hanging out just in case you run out, especially white. White is a very great color of paint to have all the time. For our sunset today, I have some yellow and some pink. I have some orange and I have some dark blue. And any versions of these colors are going to be fine. You know, orange is pretty straightforward. It's called a Tutti Frutti pink here. The cool part about using a darker pink is that you can always add white to it to make a lighter pink if you want to. And honestly, any kind of yellow is good. This one's called daffodil yellow. This is actually on the lighter side of the yellows. It's all preference. So sometimes there's some like really deep sunny yellows or like a bright yellow. Personally, I like a little bit more of a muted yellow, but that's going to be up to you to decide. As far as brushes are concerned, I have what I call my holy trifecta of brushes. I have my 3/4 inch Fatty McFadderson flathead brush. I have my 1/2 inch flathead brush here, and I have a nice long liner brush. So I just use regular synthetic brushes. You can get any versions of these at the dollar store. And your big brush can be a 1 inch brush, a 1.5, 2 inch brush even, especially depending on what size canvas that you're using. Now, I am creating this painting today to teach actually next week at a, at a party. And I need to make a bigger version of it because I really only have a paper version. So it's just going to be a really simple beach sunset. And I figure, it's actually a perfect time of year to draw something or paint something that's a little bit more on the sunny, bright side of things because it's January and it's cold and we forget what it's like to see the sun. I'm looking at myself in this camera right now and I'm like, wow, Julie, you totally need some sunshine. So this will hopefully induce a little bit of fake sunshine into my life and into my soul. So anyways, grab some supplies, including a napkin, paper plate, and a cup, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is get some paints on my plate and get my hair back here. So I'm going to start with yellow and I'm gonna work my way around the plate. Now remember, we're painting at home, so you don't have to squirt the whole bottle of paint on your canvas or on your palette. You can always add more. You don't have to do anything, you can always add more paint to your palette if you need it. So yellow, orange, pink, blue. And I'm going to put the white on now, but I'm going to wait to put the black on because we don't need the black until we put some palm trees on our canvas. Okay, perfect. Now, I'm going to say 99% of this painting is going to be done with our big fat Fatty McFadderson flathead brush. So grab that up and we'll get this party started here. Okay, so, sorry, this slid. The flip doesn't work for ponytails. I gotta, it's getting all in my face. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually start right in the middle using a mixture of yellow and white. And I like to just, don't be stingy with your paint. Grab a nice big scoop of yellow to start. And right in the middle, we're gonna start by practicing this rocking motion. So I go back lengthways and I pull up, back lengthways, pull up, okay? Now, love to get a little water on my brush, not too much, just enough to kind of bring it to my canvas and, oh, I guess I have another color on there that I didn't realize. Let's give my brush a little rinse first. Here. I still had some leftover red on there. What do you know? I guess I should have rinsed my brushes better. Okay, anyways, not a big deal. Just gonna keep putting that yellow on there, and I'm actually gonna start to mix a little bit of white in with it too, so that we get some different variations of yellow. So we get some light yellow, some regular yellow, and I'm just using this back and forth, very much like a rocking motion. If you're standing up, and be like, it's all in the hips, it's all in the hips. Even if you're sitting, it's all in the hips. All right, so the key to making beautiful sunsets is getting enough paint on your brush so that your colors can blend together. But you want to have some spots where you see each color, and then you want to have some spots where the colors are mixing together. So you're not over mixing so it all becomes one brand new color, but you're incorporating a little bit of the new colors in so that some parts are mixing and some parts are staying their true color. So I'm going to grab some orange and going to do that same rocking motion, but I want to mix it with my yellow right at the top of where that yellow and white were kind of coming together there. So there's going to be a little area where there's like a mix of yellow and white and orange together. Now, if at any time your orange eats your entire bits of yellow, you can always grab a little bit more yellow and just bring it back in. And that's something that you can do later as well. But for right now, let's just alternate a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, and just for fun, a little bit of white to keep some of those colors continuing to kind of change shape and come alive. Now, as we start to move up our canvas, we're kind of like swooping upwards all in the same direction, right? Well, every once in a while, if you want to switch it up a little bit, you can start to swoop in the opposite direction. So if I take this white and kind of start swooping a little bit to the left and then a little bit to the right, then we get all these really cool painty little wisps in the sky. And with barely any effort at all, it makes it look like a beautiful sunset. It's kind of crazy. So we have our yellow, white, orange. We're kind of mixing them at random. Little white, little yellow, little orange. And I explained it in my last painting video, but when we start to mix colors together, as we start to add the colors on, the new colors have a tendency to eat the old colors, especially if we want to blend them together. So I always put a little extra of the previous color to make sure that it doesn't get completely eaten by the last color. So if I want to see this much orange, I basically, I make a orange and a half or two, or double the orange on my canvas. So I'm going to put just a little bit more orange before I start to incorporate my pink. Little orange and little white together. I really love orange and white together because it makes this like beautiful peachy color. So peachy. Peachy's so summery and beautiful. Okay, all right. So you can see we have all these beautiful mixes of color. I can see my yellow, I can see a little bit of that white, I can see the orange, and then I see all these little areas where the two colors had mixed together. And that's what I'm going for. So I'm not even gonna rinse my brush yet. I'm gonna go straight into my pink, and I'm gonna start to incorporate some of my pink and mix it in with my orange and yellow in that same way. So I'm rocking back and forth, okay? Up and down, back and forth, back and forth. But every once in a while, I'll kind of go down in the opposite direction and so I'll swoop up towards the right, and then I'll swoop up towards the left. I'll even swoop down towards the right or down towards the left and just gently start to mix in some of these colors together. Now I'm going to continue to add some white in as I move up my canvas, just because white is a great conductor. It brings together our colors so nicely. So, and then it also adds just more dynamic into the painting as well. Makes it look nice and cloudy, and like there's these beautiful sunsetty clouds moving their way into the background here. Okay. Now if I want to see a decent amount of pink, I'm going to bring it almost all the way up to the top of my canvas. And truly, friend, the key to having just really nice blends is just keep moving your brush back and forth. As soon as you stop, things start to dry, and it makes it a lot harder to get those colors down. Okay, so you can see I'm almost all the way to the top of my canvas right now, and that's when I'm going to take a nice big scoop of blue, and I'm going to start to bring that blue down from the top into my pink. And like I said, white is the great conductor. So if the blue and pink, as I'm putting it on my canvas, they aren't mixing like really well right now. But if I grab a little bit of white and mix it in there, it's gonna start to kind of bring down some of those weird brush stroke marks. It's gonna up the opacity, so it's not gonna be so transparent as I put that on there. And I'm just gonna have fun bringing my brush back and forth, and I'm moving back down my canvas and adding some of this color in as I go down towards the center of my canvas. All right, so you can see as I kind of try and get it out of the light a little bit. I wonder if I can, there we go. We have some nice blending going on. The blue and pink turned into a little bit of a purpley color. I have lots of orange still. So I'm actually gonna just let this dry for a few minutes. And while I let that dry, I'm going to come back down to the center of my canvas. I'm gonna grab a little bit more yellow, and maybe a little water and a little yellow here, and some white. And I'm gonna go back and forth down at the bottom of my canvas down here. Now, we can bring some of that white up into the sky again. Just gonna start off with a little bit of white down here. Mix that together. Okay. Give my brush a rinse. And starting right at the bottom here, I'm gonna grab I rinsed my brush, I'm gonna grab my blue, and I'm gonna start by making a line straight across here. So it can be a little bit above the horizon line or just right along the horizon line. But from there, I'm gonna take a nice big scoop of blue, and I'm gonna start to go back and forth with my blue paint. So don't be stingy. Grab nice big scoops of paint and start to go back and forth. So I'm gonna I have a nice big goober at the top of my line here, so I'm gonna try and incorporate that with my sky, so I can blend that in a little bit because the two colors are coming together. There we go. And then I'm just gonna keep moving on down my canvas. Now once I get a decent amount of blue on there and the flow has begun, where I'm going back and forth. So when we're making a sky, we kind of do these U-style swoopy rocking motions. When we're making water, we go straight back and forth. So I'm using my whole face of my brush, and I go from one side of my canvas all the way to the other. I don't make little brush strokes. Nope. I go all the way from one side all the way to the other. And then once I get that flow going, I'm gonna start to grab a little bit of white, and I'm gonna mix some white in with my blue. Same though, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm not gonna over mix so that it becomes a nice light blue, I'm going to leave some of these white marks as I work my way down. And I need more blue. I need more blue, blue, blue. I'm blue, da boo dee da boo da boo dee da boo da. And I'm going to take this all the way down to the bottom of my canvas, filling in all the little canvas holes. So if you see any dry spots on your canvas, you can fill them in and then wipe over them so that you have nice long brush strokes. All right. And then every once in a while, I grab a little bit of white to swoop right in there, all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so once I have all that paint on, I'm gonna just do a once over. I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to go from one side to the other, go up, and then I'm going to go down again. And then from that point, I'm going to just make a little bit of an assessment and see how much white I have in there. I definitely have enough. I could definitely put more. So if you want a little bit more dynamic in your water, you can just kind of gently bring in, grab a little white, and from the side of your canvas, just kind of swoop in some little bits of white. You can do that on both sides here. And you can see it just gives your water all sorts of different lowlights and highlights. And I'm going to bring it back to the top and do one more line up here. And that's it. So I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. You can use a hair dryer to dry it faster, or just leave it be for probably a good 5 minutes. And then when we come back, we can start to add all the extra little elements onto it. All right, great work, friend. Now that our canvas is dry, we can add little extra elements into our sky if you want to. If you love it, just leave it be. Just leave it be. You don't have to do anything. There's a couple things that you can do to kind of make it a little bit more dynamic though. So if you want, you can see I have these beautiful colors you know what, it works really well and I actually really like it, but I did intend to have a little bit of a darker top on it. So I can take some extra blue and just actually with a little bit of water, a little dip of water and a little bit of blue, and just make some littler rocking motions up at the top to bring in a little bit more of a darker hue into the top of my canvas. It just makes it a little bit more dynamic, gives it a little bit more contrast from the bright light down at the bottom, to bring it up into like a little bit of a darker sky, just to show that it's a little bit more of a sunsetty vibe and not so sunrisey, you know, a little more sunsetty, not so sunrisey. And now, because we already have so much paint on our canvas, just get a little drop of water on my brush before I grab a little bit of paint. Really helps get on top of the colors and keep it not so dry. So if I were to take just straight paint without any water and try and put it right on top, we get a lot of dry marks on there. So little drop of water, little tap on my palette, and just grabbing a little bit of that will help just put the paint right on top of that other paint without really having to have any really harsh lines, and it's a little easier to blend. So I'm just having fun kind of making a few rocking motions, bringing that blue down into, you know, the pinky part of my sky. And I can pretty much do that with any color I want. So, you know, if I don't have a lot of pink on there, so I'll grab a little water, a little pink, and I can add a few extra little pink strokes on top to bring that pink back. And you can even have fun with it and bring the pink down a little further into the sky, or you can just leave it be. Honestly, as soon as your heart's like, I think I love it, you should just stop. Just stop when your heart says to stop. And then I can do this with any color. So this can take a little bit of time, which is completely unnecessary, but it's up to you how long you want to spend your time painting, right? For my quickies, a little bit of white also helps, a little water, then a little white. Just add a few little cloudy bits into the sky as well. So you can really add little bits of like white swoopy clouds pretty much anywhere in the background, all the way up and all the way down. So you could even add some extras up here, mix it in with some of your blue and pink. I think, you know, sometimes we get a little bit crazy and add a whole bunch of white into the sky of our painting, and it doesn't necessarily look bad, but I do believe that a lot of the times less is more. So you don't need a whole lot to create different little bits of dynamic in your sky. Just a little here and there is gonna really lighten up some areas, you know, show that there's some cloudy wisps in the sky without completely taking over the background with clouds. And the craziest thing is that sunsets are ever changing. So, you know, sometimes there's like, the clouds can really look like anything, right? Like sometimes they're really thin little pieces in the sky. Sometimes they're the big white fluffy clouds. So they can be going in any direction, and nobody should have the opportunity to really like question like the style of the cloud, because clouds can look like everything. So, all right, I'm gonna stop there. I could do that all day. And that was very much a sky move. So when we're in the sky, we're making these little rocking motions, swoop, 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 up to the left, up to the right, down to the left, down to the right. But in the water, we go back and forth, okay? So a little bit of water on my brush. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that white, and I'm gonna lighten up some of my areas in my water. So water, just a little bit of white, and I'm just gonna start to kind of, my brush is flat on its side here, so I'm not full facing it like I was before. It's flat on its side, and I just gently pull my brush back and forth as straight as possible. You know, sometimes there's a little curve to it, but that's okay. I'm gonna pull a little bit more light into my water here. See how it's just brightening up that edge there? Now, the closer the water is to the sky, the brighter it's going to be. So it's going to be a little bit brighter up at the top. So I do this a little bit more towards the top. And then as I kind of work my way down my canvas, it's going to get a little less, a little bit more separated lines. And that's it. So bright up at the top, and then just kind of really start to separate your water lines as you move down towards the bottom of your canvas. Now we have all these colors in the sky too, so you can have fun with it. You know, grab a little yellow, pop a couple little yellow bits in there. And water is like a mirror, right? So we're kind of mirroring it. So there's going to be a little bit more yellow up at the top. And then as we work our way down, you can add a little orange. And a little pink. And the best part about painting is that it's really your interpretation of it. So even if you wanted to make the whole, like the whole water area all colorful, you can absolutely do that as well. Like nobody's stopping you. Painting is an expression of you. So if you're feeling a little bit more colorful, go for it. If you're feeling just a little bit more monotone, just keep it closer to one color. It's all good. So I'm just alternating. I'm just having fun with it. And I'm using that same brush stroke. I'm going back and forth, just kind of dragging on some extra colors down in the ocean down here. And that's all I'm going to do with that. I'm going to leave it be. And after that's done, I'm just going to let it dry for a minute, but we are going to start to put some black on our canvas, and we're going to make some beautiful palm trees in the background. We're going to palm it up, friends. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so grab your black paint. I'm going to put it right in the middle. And I just want, let's take notice, okay? Let's take notice. I have this big 16 by 20 canvas. I said don't use a lot of paint, and look how much paint I still have left over from all of my paints here. So, you know, you're thinking you just put a little squirt of each, but I could probably make 3 more paintings like this with the amount of colors that I have. Maybe not with the blue, because we obviously used a lot more blue than the other colors, but everything else, we totally could have just probably put a quarter of the amount on our plates. Anyways, it's all good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a little bit of a beach sunset, and by beach, it means tropical beach sunset. So let's make a beach. Now, all of this is just gonna be silhouetted, so we're just doing it in black today. We're not doing anything fancy. We're keeping it super chill. I'm gonna grab a little water with my big brush. I'm gonna grab a big scoop of black, and I'm gonna make a place where my palm trees are gonna live. So I'm just gonna start down here. I'm gonna kind of wiggle my brush along, and I'm gonna fill that in. Now it's up to you. You know, you might want to put a little bit more of a landmass. You can totally do that. No worries. Now, if you're having a hard time filling in those little dry canvas spots where you can like see the canvas still poking through the background, take your brush, little dip of water, tap it in the color that you're using, and it's gonna fill in those spots super easily without wiping any paint off or getting anything, you know, all over the place. All right. Now, we'll start with one big palm tree, and I'm gonna have it popping up from the center here. So whenever I'm making any kind of trunk, I love starting from the top or bottom and going upwards. It just works for me. And I feel like when you start at the top and work your way up, it's thicker at the bottom and it gets thinner as we go to the top, and that's very much the palm tree style. Now, you need room for your palms, and my literal palm of my hand, or like my, you know, my hand is a great gauge for how big my palm tree is gonna be. So if I do this, that's roughly how, like, where I want my palms to kind of be. Obviously they're not gonna be exactly like this, but a very rough estimate as to where my palm tree part is going to be. So I know I'm gonna aim somewhere for the middle of my hand. So about here would probably be a good spot, maybe even a little bit taller, but somewhere in the middle of my sky is gonna be a great ending point for my palm tree trunk. So I'm gonna grab my brush, grab a little water, mix it with my black, and I'm still using my big brush here. And like I said, I'm going to aim for about here because palm trees have a little curve. So I'm going to start over on the side. I'm going to curve it up towards this area right here. I'm going to start up. My brush is on its side. Okay, so if you can see on its side, it's not full face. It's not, it gets dark down there. It's not full faced. It's on its side like this. Okay. And I'm going to start in the corner and shh, something like that. Now, obviously, palm trees are not that thin, so I'm going to thicken it up and I'm going to make a nice, decent sized palm tree trunk. And palm trees are very bumpy and wiggly, so as I'm kind of coloring it in, I'm putting a few little bumps and wiggles in there. And this is something we can always thicken up later if it's not big enough, so I'm just going to leave it be just like that. Okay. Now I am going to move over to using my smaller flathead brush here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create 5 spots for palm leaves. So I'm going to grab a little water with my brush. And while I'm putting my paint on my brush this time, because I want my bristles to stay nice and put together, first of all, you can do it with your fingers. You can take your fingers and kind of smoosh your bristles together before you put paint on it. And then grab a little bit of water. And then when you're putting your paint on, kind of flatten your brush out on your plate. So I'm pulling away as I am loading up my brush. That way there, my bristles are still nice and put together. They're nice and flat, nice and thin at the top. I can put that back bristle, this back bristle here on my canvas, and I'm gonna make a curved line going down like this. Make a shooshing noise, it really helps. And okay, so that is a really good start to just figuring out where your palm leaves are going to be. Now there's a couple ways we can make the leaves themselves. My personal favorite is using the full face of my brush here, and the more you pull away from the middle of your palm branch, the more your bristles are going to separate a little bit. So as I have my brush on right on that line, I'm going to start to make little pulls and pull away. Okay, so my brush is flat faced on the line and I'm making a little curved line all the way to the end. Now palms are, some are really long, some are really short. They are really, I like to keep it pretty sporadic because it's a tree and trees are really random. So at some points, you know, you might pull a little more, pull a little less, and you'll have these beautiful kind of peaks and valleys in your palm leaf here. Until it tapers, till it just turns into a little point at the end. Okay, now you can keep your palm just on one side like that, or you can make it go like have both sides of the palm showing. So and like I said, you know, nobody's gonna judge you on what your palm tree looks like. Nobody's gonna be like, oh, that looks weird. Why is one palm branch going one way and why is the other one going the other way? No, nobody's gonna judge. Sometimes they fan out, sometimes they fan in, sometimes they get long, sometimes they shorten up, sometimes they get broken off by the wind and there's big empty spaces on your palm leaves. So that's that, okay? Now that's using the flat face of my brush. If you want, you can be a little bit more particular about your palm leaves and you can use the flat edge of your brush and just pull one at a time like this. instead of using the full face of your brush, and your palm leaves can look a little bit more distinct, a little bit more like a long line of palms instead of so fuzzy and fluffy. There are different styles of palm trees, so that's another way that you can do that. And you can also do that same kind of, if you take your long liner brush, grab a little bit of water before you grab your paint. You can be even more particular about it and be very like, you can push and kind of pull and like wiggle off different palm leaves here. So this one looks a little, I feel like it looks like a little bit more cartoony. So what I'm doing is I'm starting at the top, I push, and as I pull away, I kind of fling off the canvas. So that's 3 different ways to make palm leaves. I'm sure there's other ways, but those are my top 3. All right. So you decide what your favorite is. I'm gonna stick with my favorite. So back to the top, I'm gonna get my medium brush here. I'm gonna fill it up with paint. And I'm gonna pull away, swim away, swim away, pull away, pull away. Because once you find a flow, it's easy, it's effective. And the real key is just making sure that as you're pulling away, see how the bristles of my brush start to separate a little bit there? See how they're kind of like they're not put together anymore? That's what's getting me these nice little palm lines. And also a reminder that, you know, when things are silhouetted, you know, they overlap, and sometimes it doesn't make sense right off the bat, but like trees, you know, overlap, and sometimes there's, you know, leaves there that we don't even see because it's all black and silhouetted, and we can't distinguish one tree leaf from the other. Now, if you put too much water on your brush, you kind of lose that little bit of fuzziness from your bristles being separated. But the more you use it, the drier it gets. So, you know, there's like a kind of a happy medium of spots where it will look a little bit darker, and then it'll look a little bit lighter. I really like my trees to have like a lot of wispies kind of going in all the directions. Just makes it look like it's kind of rustling in the wind. So I feel like with just the 5 palms, it will give you a perfectly great palm tree style. Everybody's going to know that it's a palm tree, and it's not so much that it's going to like ruin your arms or your stamina, but you can absolutely put more palms in there if you want to. We can add another one kind of really anywhere, really. You can even add just like little branches kind of popping out with not so much on them. I'm just, you know, I'm just offering up some ideas for you to create your own style palm tree, and everybody's is going to look different. So I'll tell you, now that we're done doing this tree, I'll tell you my tree speech, okay? So basically, I pretty much teach trees always the same-ish way, whether it's a pine tree or a palm tree or anything. And no matter what, everybody's trees always look different. There's no time where anybody's trees look the same, but they all end up looking like trees. So I always really encourage people to try and find your own tree style. Like, you're gonna find a little, like a flow with your palm branches. Just go with it, man. It's not wrong. There's no right or wrong when we do this kind of stuff. It's all just fun and happiness and learning and practicing. So, you know, the more you practice, the more different styles you test out, the better off you're going to be. So try a little bit of each. You might have one palm tree that's a little more fuzzy, one that's a little bit more put together, and that's okay. It's totally okay. So let's make one more palm tree, and I'm just going to use my smaller brush to make the trunk this time. So a little water, loading up my brush. I'm going to bring it out and kind of make a little bit of a smaller one here. And I'm going to do the same thing. And now this is where our trees are going to overlap a little bit. So I'm going to put my brush on its side. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to make those leaves. All right, so you can see, you know, they can really have any kind of style to them. You know, you can put more palm trees. You can have another palm tree popping up over here if you're really loving making the palm trees. Absolutely do that. And, you know, now's the time to just take a little seat back, do a little assessment. What are some other things that we can add into our beach sunset that are gonna, you know, make things kind of more dynamic? Like, I have a lot of water here. I could maybe do some fish jumping or dolphins or a whale tail perhaps. In my sky, I could put some birds. So if you ever decide to put, you know, the little V birds in any kind of beach scene or ocean scene, I have a little hack for you. So I feel like it's our instinct to put a McDonald's M. When we want to do that, we go meh, meh, and make these birds, and that can turn out okay. But generally what I like to do is, instead of doing that, I make a V. So I start in the middle. So I'm going to grab my liner brush. I'm going to grab a little bit of paint, and I'm going to make sure I have a nice little point on the end of my brush. So instead of making the McDonald's M, I'll start, let's see if I can get a little closer here. I'll start right in the center and I'll pull up one way, shoop. And then I go back to the center and I pull up the other way, boop. And you get these nice, beautiful little points on the ends of your feathers, or of what should be the wings. You know, from this point, you can kind of make a little tiny body too if you want to make it look like it's flying away. And you're not getting a big gob on one side and a little gob on the other side. You're just going straight to in the middle here. Boop. And boop. And it can make it look like the birds are going in all different directions. Some can be further away, some can be closer. I'm going to anywhere where paint splattered on my painting, I'm putting a little V to cover it up. And you can do that in black or white, anything you want, and anywhere on the canvas. So if you got another choop, choop. Now, I like to try and keep it as small as possible. Some, like I said, some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, and that's okay. And another thing that we can do to just give our painting some more vibes is just add a little extra color to show that there might be like a little highlight somewhere. So you can use your liner brush. I'm just gonna grab my flathead brush here, and I'm gonna use pink today. A little bit of pink to kind of drag on the side of my palm tree here to give it a little pink highlight. Not very visible. You could use yellow as well, just to show that there's a little bit of sun kind of shining. That actually, the yellow showed up a lot better, so let's do that. A little bit of highlight on the sides of the trees. You can, you know, kiss some of the palms too. If there's any spots, you just want to drag in a little bit of color here and there. And also along the shoreline, if you want to add a little highlight, you know, it can even be like a little bit more of a oceany. Maybe there's a little water that got up on shore here. Who knows? And that's it. So I really hope that you enjoyed the process today. If you did, if you got through this whole thing with me, congratulations. And the last thing I always love to do, and I think that it's a really important part of the process, is just put your name on it, put a little, your initials or something, just to claim it, because everybody should know that you're the one who made it, because you're awesome. And I will see you next week on my channel. Just remember, if you're ever looking to do any virtual parties with your staff or family that's across the country, we can all meet up online and do an awesome paint party together. It's always fun, no matter if you're in person or virtual. So with that said, I hope to see you soon, and have an awesome week, friend. Bye.